Hi, beautiful souls. Welcome to Sacred Heart Awakenings group. This is another week of love wisdom with the Sacred Heart Awakenings group with Monica. I'm Monica Bermudez. I'm an intuitive self-love energy healer and spiritual counselor. And this week, I want to discuss, and just so you know, every love wisdom video that is done and message is intuitively guided. So this week I actually was feeling very strong towards a talk about discernment. And it seems to be coming up a lot everywhere. And intuitively I kept hearing discernment when I was asking, well, what should we talk about this week? And the message I kept getting was about discernment. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you for being live with me at the moment and watching this video. I love having your presence here in the group as well, having your big heart and your love and sharing that with the world as well, which is why I love to share these love wisdoms on a weekly basis. And please feel free to share with others as well and invite others to the group who are heart-minded like you and I, and want to expand more on the love and the universal love in the world and the planet, because we all need it so much right now. And I also have a YouTube channel, so please go to YouTube channel and watch some of the videos in there that I've been organizing, and please subscribe to it and share with family and friends or people you may think may benefit from this as well, that would help them in getting more in touch with their own love wisdom and just love in general, and be inspired and have their hearts open. So I'm just so grateful that you're here and that you're watching, even those who are watching in replay land. Thank you for all your comments and your feedbacks and your interactions in the Facebook group. I appreciate it. And so please feel free to comment and feedback on what we discuss in these videos and what's your takeaway from the message as well. And you feel free to share that within the sacred space of our own Sacred Heart group that we formed together as a vortex together. So before I jump into the subject about discernment, which I'll get into how to distinguish and how to help you as a spiritual tool to navigate through some of the changes that we're going through. Because what I've been feeling, and the reason why this message was coming in so strong this week, what I've been intuitively feeling is that the changes that are coming are going to get more intense. So we're going to need this very much so. And I call this a spiritual tool because we are mostly spiritual. We have a soul within a physical body. And so we must make use of what we mostly have, which is our spiritual side, to be able to navigate as human beings here on earth, and aligning that with the love inside of us. So speaking of changes and speaking of energy and all that, I just wanted to talk about some of the things that I've also been feeling intuitively this week and observing as well, is that we're about to enter into Mars retrograde. And usually when a planet is in retrograde, that impacts within us. It's more like internalizing inside of us. And so that planet is teaching us about going within and exploring those areas. So Mars is about, it's a warlike planet. So there's a tendency to maybe frustrations and angers may come up and arise. And I have been feeling that collectively with a lot of people around, that there's been frustration and people have been more easily triggered. And so in some ways they get really angry about certain situations or things. But I just wanted to remind you that yes, okay, you're a human being, you will feel, but as it arises, be aware of it and just learn from it. Why is that situation triggering you? Start asking yourself those questions And what is it inside of you that is being reflected from that situation or even that person? Somebody may say something and you may get triggered by it. And at times, in one of my videos, I talked about perception. And I talked about how shifting the perception and looking at things from a different angle. So maybe that person did not intend to say it in the way that they said it, or even show a picture in the way they meant it, and it was triggered in the other person. So you may want to ask whether it was something that was inside of you that just needs to be explored and needs to be reviewed. And that's really what the retrograde is about, reviewing those aspects as well that are inside of you. And so Mars is also about courage in some ways, and bravery. So you want to look at the shadow aspects and you want to look at the light aspect of things. And everything right now is about also learning how for us to be centered and balanced when these things come up. So I'm only sharing this information with you because I wanted you to be aware and also to remind you of the tools that you have in front of you, and not just run off with the feeling of being triggered or angry by something, but just really sit down with it first, or just take a deep breath and try to center yourself with it as you navigate through these changes at the moment that we're going through. So yes, definitely there'll be practice of patience and tolerance as well. And we could make change in things. We can make effective changes in things through love. We have the power of creativity, and there's so many ways that we could do it and make impact in this world. So, and then also on top of all the other changes with the Mars coming into retrograde soon, we also have Uranus, the planet Uranus that is right now in retrograde. And so the planet of Uranus is known to be like the great awakener. So in a way, like when the planet is in retrograde, that means there's an expansion, there's a huge spiritual growth that is going on inside of you. But in order for that to happen, there will be certain shadow aspects that need to come up. But they come up for you to recognize and be aware of them, so that you work with them and transmute them, alchemize them, and make that change in your life. And that is how you grow spiritually and expand, is by recognizing them and just being able to alchemize them. So that's why these energies are in our favor, and they can be intense, of course, in times, and but just be aware of those things that are happening. And coming up next week, September 2nd, we're gonna be in the full moon phase. And so the full moon is really gonna, each full moon I've noticed has been getting a little more intense, especially for this year, 2020. As we all know, we just went through, or still are in some phase of this pandemic going on, that we're going through. But also at the same time, these other energies are on top of it, that are telling us to go more within, and we all end up being inside and indoors most of the time, which the universe has been giving us a very strong message that it's time for us to really go within and really do the inner work inside of us. And because before that, everything was external. We spend most of our time running and racing and just like a routine, like a daily routine and ritual that, I have to get up, I have to go to work, I have to do this, I have to, all these things that were keeping us so busy that we really forgot, that we really needed to sit down with ourselves and really analyze and look within us and everything that was going on. And so that's what's been happening with 2020 in a way that's kind of been forcing us to do that. And it's still in that phase, because this is the time for us to wake up, and that time is now. And it's better to do those changes now in alignment with love rather than the painful ones. And of course, if things are inevitable, then prepare yourself for those things. in ways that if it does happen, you'll be ready. You'll be armored like a knight with your armor on and your spiritual sword of divine truth. Just reminds me of Archangel Michael. And speaking of Archangel Michael, so I want to just jump in now into the topic about discernment. And the reason why I think of Archangel Michael is because when I think of discernment, it goes hand in hand with intuition. And Archangel Michael emphasizes a lot about intuition. And I feel though he was really the one who was guiding me with the discernment topic for this week, because discernment and intuition go hand in hand. I see them as like soulmates. They work together. And so there's intuition is, higher, it's like a divine intelligence. And it's the same thing with discernment. So now I'm just getting into some of the definitions of what discernment is. And discernment is being able to distinguish from A and B, right? Or distinguish something that you're feeling, but you're using it with divine intelligence. And I call it also love wisdom. But it's love wisdom when you're in alignment with pure love wisdom. And I'll get into some of the topics of the how and how to use that to navigate throughout. But I want to just talk about what discernment is. And it's about trust. And usually, like, intuition is all about trust as well. But it's going beyond the perception, and it's in alignment with divine truth. And so you need to just be very clear about the discernment. I think of it more like a filter. I talk about, like, you have a filter. Say, for example, you're making spaghetti and you want to filter out the water. So you want to grab the pasta so you can make your spaghetti, right? So the same way with discernment, you want to use it as some form of filter that helps you navigate with some of the changes. Now, the next question is, why do we even care to have discernment? Why is it so important? Why is it coming up? So I did ask this question, and the message that I was getting, intuitive message, was that we need it now because things are going to get more intense. There's going to be more changes. And it's so needed in alignment with intuition as we navigate through these changes. And it impacts and it helps and assists with any type of relationship. It doesn't matter if it's romantic relationship, it could be a friendship relationship, it could be your job, it could be other things that you're doing at home. And that's why discernment is very much needed. And so getting into some of these sacred tips that I want to share with you about how, we can navigate through this right now. Oh, before getting into, I had done like a card spirit reading with some of the animal spirit guides. And there were there were two cards that came up. And this is from the Oracle card called the Spirit Animal Oracle card by Carlette. And the one spirit animal that came up was the wolf spirit, and the other one was the wombat. And both of these animals are associated with divine intelligence, which to me is associated with discernment and intuition. So when I asked the question as I was shuffling through the cards, the Oracle cards, I asked, what message would you like to share with the group tonight, or the group while I'm doing this live video recording that I'm doing right now with Sacred Heart Awakenings group. And these two cards came up. And so it emphasizes the point that discernment is very important right now for us to really be in alignment and really start thinking about this and really start to apply it and practice it and learn it right now. And so I'll post on the Facebook group a picture of the cards and share with you some of the message and information. But I just wanted to share this. I thought it was really interesting that it came up, and how the universe synchronizes and brings the same message, in different formats, for us to really get it and really wake up. So I'm just helping interpret some of these messages from the universe that are coming in, and the signs of the universe. So jumping into the sacred tips that I want to share with you. One thing to know that also, in order to like navigate around these discernments, you need to be very clear channeled, or as clear as you can. So sometimes there's so many like distorted energies in us. Like, for instance, others may have projected stuff on us, and we may have subconsciously observed some of that energy in us that we may not even be aware of, and maybe subconscious. And sometimes, some of these patterns come from karmic past lives. Some of it gets transferred through generations of ancestors in us. And we have so many ancestors, and they all get within our energy field. And so in some ways, this distorts the channel. So I like to think of it as an example, just to share an example. What I mean by distorted energies is, if you're listening to radio and you're tuning into a certain specific station, and all of a sudden it starts to get really staticky and noisy. And that static and noise is what I'm calling the distorted energy in our energy field. And so you're not, your intuition, your higher self is giving you messages, giving you signs, or giving you a certain message that you need to hear from your guides. But it's coming in kind of fuzzy. It's not coming in clear because there's other noise in the background, static noise. And some of it is caused by these distorted patterns going on inside of you. And so those are things that get so deeply rooted that definitely not the way to live, because we're meant to live in higher vibration of love and joy. And this is a time for us to really be aligning with that energy. And of course, if there's anything that you need help with, I would really love to talk to you about it. So please reach out to me about it so we can talk. Because this is not something that, obviously you're not alone. You can always seek help when you need it, right? So I want to jump into some of the sacred tips with you about the discernment. First, feel into your body when a certain situation or somebody says something. You want to feel how your body feels. Think of your body as an instrument, and think of it as a divine instrument where it does indicate to you, it does give you warnings. For instance, like if you're not feeling well and something it feels off, especially after you eat a food, then pay attention to that. There's when you start becoming more aware of what that message is coming from your body or that instrument, then that's when you start to work and develop more on your discernment, and just keep practicing it and distinguishing what makes the body feel uncomfortable, what makes the body feel good. There's certain foods that make it feel really good, certain foods that make it feel uncomfortable, or certain pains in certain sides of the body just doesn't like it. And sometimes this is how the guides also communicate, is through the body. And there may be other ways that they communicate with you, but pay attention to that and be aware of it, and really ask the questions and dig deep within, what's coming up. So the next way to distinguish the discernment is it aligned with love? So also, like, discernment helps with distinguishing between the ego and the intuition. And the ego is fear-based. The intuition is more love-based. So you want to see if something, for example, is triggering you or making you really angry, then really asking yourself, what is, causing this trigger to come up from this person or this situation? And is it something that, before you act on it, you want to ask, is this in alignment with love? Am I acting from an intuition, or am I acting from an ego-based, some form of like lower vibration that feels uncomfortable? Just similar to how when you feel the body, except that in the body is you're treating it as an instrument that is an indicator of, helping you filter what is going on, the messages that you're receiving, right? So the next sacred tip is this in alignment with the highest good? So these are just tips, help you like before you make any type of action to ask yourself, how is it in alignment with the highest good? Is it going to hurt someone? Is it going to hurt yourself? Or is it going to help really, bring in more of that love and that peace, that change that this world needs, but in a more loving way? So that's one way to measure it, is through a love base, the heart center, and how it feels balanced. So the other one, if you're really not so clear on the discernment, the way to, as a tip, love tip, sacred love tip, is to use the breathing technique. So you want to, for instance, use like yoga has different breathing techniques, or use the breathing techniques that works for you, and really breathe in deep and really try to center yourself and balance your heart, and really just it's like taking a step back, and before making any type of decision or any type of discernment on how to know if it's really your intuition that you're aligning with right here and distinguishing. And so those are some of the tips that I wanted to share with you, and I hope that it helps with maybe practicing this spiritual tool itself that I call the discernment, to really sharpen your tool. In other words, it's like sharpening a knife. But if you wanted to use a knife, for instance, to cut an apple, or to cut, something to make food, which is served for the highest good, as, just talked about just now, some of the tips. And you're making something with love. So I'm using cooking as an analogy. I'm using, let's say the knife is the discernment. And you're sharpening that knife so that, which is your discernment, so that you're able to serve it with love and serve it with your highest good for those who are impacted around you, who are going to be eating your delicious food, of course. And so just using that as an analogy itself. And that's what I wanted to just share with you about discernment. And I welcome your feedback, your comments that you may have. And I hope that it does benefit you as we navigate through these changes, and just remember to keep yourself balanced and centered, especially as this full moon comes up, that because, as we're entering also Mars retrograde, it may cause some like a bit of anger and frustration to come up as well. But remember, the full moon is about releasing. So clearing and releasing to allow for something new, or the space for something new to be created in your life. So the full moon adds like this reset button to help you get to the new moon phase. So by the time you get to the new moon phase, you're creating something new. You're using that energy to recreate some old pattern that you released probably from the full moon, that you've been trying to get rid of or transmute for a long time. You use the full moon energy to help you with that. And then you clear the space, and then you start to really think about what is the new that you want to bring in to replace that old pattern that was in your life, that wasn't serving you anymore. It wasn't serving the highest good in you anymore. And so you want to recreate something that is serving your highest good, and that is serving the highest good of all, and that is all in alignment with love. It's love, wisdom, discernment, intuition, all the tools we need to just practice and keep working on. So I look forward to hearing from you in the group chats. And I hope everybody's well and staying safe. And I just want to say much love to all of you. So take care and have a great day and evening.